Welcome back, Defenders. Let's start with the bad news for Russia. Russia's oil and fuel export revenue fell again in August, according to the IEA. Russia's revenue from the sales of crude oil and oil products declined in August to one of the lowest levels since the war began. The IEA said that revenues fell by $920 million from July to a total of $13.5 billion. Revenue is going down because Russia is exporting less. In addition, the price continues to fall. Russian flagship Urals oil blend is currently trading at $56 per barrel, well below the Western-imposed price cap of $60. Here's the price of ICE Brent crude, currently at $66. The Urals is a lower grade, so it trades at a discount. But look at this 5-year trend. Going back to February of 2022, the price of oil hit a high of $122 per barrel. And it's now half. Over the last 3 years, there's ups and downs. This is the heartbeat of the market. But it's fallen in half, meaning that Russia is getting half of what they were getting 3 years ago for their oil exports. This is devastating. And for some reason, the Saudis want to pump more, and this is going to make it worse for the Russians. OPEC Plus agrees to further oil output boost starting in October to try and regain market share. I'm not going to ask questions. It seems like if the Saudis wanted to pump more, they should have been pumping more when the price was $100 a barrel, but this is just going to devastate the Russians even further. Things in Russia are only going to get worse this fall and winter. And Ukraine's not going to stop. This is the winning strategy, going after their oil refineries. These gasoline shortages across Russia continue. This is a gas station. This picture was taken in Nizhny Novgorod. And this is shocking because I would consider this Russian core territory. This is Russia's 6th largest city. It's about 1.2 million people. It's east of Moscow. And there's reports of gasoline shortages in this city now. In addition to the Far East, the Caucasus, the occupied territories. Let me share with you what these gasoline lines look like happening across Russia.
Вообще мы могли сегодня спокойнее поехать в Шуту и сказать, что проблемы с теплом. Да? Потому что я тебе говорю, завтра мы будем придумывать или вечером где взять дизель. Вчера мне повезло, и я заправил полностью дизель. Так а дизель?
People are reporting waiting 8 hours in line for their 10 liters of gasoline rationing for their car. Sure, you can do this in summertime, when the weather is nice, but who is going to sit in their car for 8 hours waiting for 10 liters of gasoline in December or January? Russians just aren't going to be able to drive starting this winter. Millions of Russians will not be able to have fuel, and they're just not going to go to work because they can't drive their car. There's no way. Ukraine also struck another oil depot, or actually this is an oil terminal in Permosk. So the Ust-Luga terminal, this is west of St. Petersburg, is located right here. But what Ukraine is doing now is going after all the pumping stations. This is kind of what the terminal looks like. But let me share with you this map. And this is fascinating because I didn't realize there were so many of these pumping stations. I knew there had to be stations to pump for these oil and gas pipelines, but I didn't realize they were basically every 10 to 20 kilometers all across Russia, and none of them are protected. This is what they look like from satellite images, and if Ukraine wants to hit them with a drone or a missile, there's nothing Russia can do. So apparently 3 of these pumping stations feeding this terminal in the Baltic Sea were attacked by Ukraine last night. We don't know what the success was, but if you were not successful, hit a different one. As you can see, these pumping stations are located everywhere, And this is Russia's Achilles heel. If they can't get their oil or refined products out to the sea to be loaded on ships, then they're not exporting. If they're not exporting, they're not making money. This is an oil depot in Smolensk region. Ukraine also struck this last night. It's just a fire and some explosions in the difference, but it's going to continue. And we do have good news. This is fantastic, but thousands more drones. UK and Germany bankroll Kyiv blitz on Putin's oil. Thanks to Allied financing, Ukraine may soon have enough long-range missiles and drones to match Russia's own bombardment campaign. New mega deal on the horizon. Germany to invest 300 million euros in Ukraine's deep strike drones. Berlin bets on Ukrainian drones, the 300 million euro deep strike initiative to scale up UAV production. Germany can't go to war with Russia. The United Kingdom can't go to war with Russia. Because of nuclear weapons, this would be very bad. But Russia has kind of accepted that Ukraine can strike their territory, and they can strike their territory with Western weapons or Western-financed weapons. So this is the solution. If people in Europe want to defeat the Russians and end this threat once and for all, just give Ukraine more money. Give them the capabilities to produce more missiles, and Ukraine will take out all this infrastructure, make the Russians bleed and hurt until they stop this war. UK signs deal to mass produce Ukraine's interceptor drones as war tech alliance deepens. This is now a proven concept. We got that report from the Wild Hornets a week ago that they successfully shot down 30 Shahed drones in a single night with these 3D printed interceptors. These interceptors cost $1,000 to $2,000 each. They're shooting down $20,000 to $30,000 Shahed drones. So the UK signed a deal to finance and produce these for Ukraine. And this is the answer. If Russia wants to launch 500 Shahed drones a night, then Ukraine's going to have 5,000 interceptor drones waiting for them. Even at a 10-to-1 ratio, a 90% failure rate, it still economically is cheaper for Ukraine to counter what Russia is spending on these nightly attacks. UK pledges $193 million in Ukraine aid and hits Russia with new sanctions. So thank you to the Germans, thank you to the Brits, we're making progress here. This is going to have a huge impact on the battlefield this fall and winter. And then there's the Swedes. Swedish-Ukrainian surprises to come on the battlefield. Sweden announces $836 million military aid package. We don't know exactly what's in these aid packages. A lot of countries have stopped announcing. They're still helping Ukraine, they're sending stuff. They're just not telling anyone. But for some reason, Sweden did announce what was included partially in this package, and all good stuff. Thank you so much to the Swedes. Ukraine struck a rare Russian spy ship 600 kilometers away. Now it's crippled and useless. This is a Navy Project MPSV-07 salvage ship, but it looks like it has surveillance capabilities. The ship's worth about $60 million, and Ukrainian intelligence released the video of them attacking the ship. And you can see, obviously, there's some radars and antennas on top, but that's what Ukraine was going for. This is just consistent with the pattern of what Ukraine's been trying to do, to blind the Russians on the Crimean Peninsula. This is a screenshot from the pro-Russian Telegram channel Rybar, and showing all of the locations that have been struck basically over the last, this goes back to January, but the intensity has increased in August, going after air defense systems and radars. So the Russians on Crimea can't counter aerial threats, which means Ukraine has been destroying Russian radars and allowing the use of Bayraktar drones again. Bayraktar drones, previously limited by Russian anti-air, are now operating freely and have already caused casualties and equipment losses for the Russians. The Turkish Bayraktar had its moment in the sun, the first couple weeks of the war, but in general, it doesn't have any stealth capabilities, and Russia was easily shooting them down. But if all of Russia's air defense systems in Crimea are knocked offline, sure, use some Bayraktars again, in addition to these new Flamingo and Peklo cruise missiles. I think they're going to continue hitting juicy targets on the Crimean Peninsula. Let's now follow up on this attack on Poland, because this is a big deal. This is different. In largest drone breach into NATO territory, Russia appears to be probing Polish resolve. This is where about 20 of these Russian drones landed inside Poland, and not all of these drones had warheads. When Russia launches these massive nightly attacks, they have decoy drones that are just loaded up with extra fuel, because they're trying to confuse and divert air defense systems away from the lethal drones. But there were a few that did have warheads. And this is just the Russians testing the Poles, testing NATO, testing the United States to see what we would do and how we would react. But there also is this. Russia may have struck Poland to discourage air defense support for Ukraine. Meaning, if the Poles feel threatened, this is a NATO country, then they're going to want more resources from NATO. The more resources NATO spends defending Poland, that's less resources they have to help Ukraine. There is a logical strategy here from the Russians. This is the Polish Prime Minister saying, we need Patriots and an anti-drone wall. If you have Patriots in Poland, maybe you can help shoot down some stuff in Ukraine before it reaches your airspace, but Poland still doesn't want to do that. And Poland announced they will send troops to Ukraine to learn how to shoot down Russian drones. I'm guessing that Poland wants to get their hands on the spec designs for these interceptor drones. Just start printing them. Just make as many as you can. They will be used. But what was America's reaction to Russia's attack on Poland? Trump downplays Russian drone incursion into Poland as a mistake, drawing sharp rebuke from the Allies. Do I need to play the clip? I'm going to play the clip. But yes, this is the President of the United States defending Russia, covering for Russia, saying the drone attack could have been a mistake.
What's your reaction to Russian drone incursion into Poland?
Could have been a mistake. Could have been a mistake. But regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation. But hopefully it's going to come to an end.
So he said he's not happy, and he hopes the war will just somehow end. But he has Russia's back. Rather than listening to his own intelligence community, which says Russia deliberately did this, and rather than listening to our ally, Poland, all Trump has to do is call the president, prime minister, whoever of Poland, and yes, it was a deliberate attack, a deliberate provocation, but Trump doesn't like facts, he doesn't like living in reality. If it conflicts with what he wants, he just lies. So this is the foreign minister saying, no, Mr. President, it was not a mistake. This is him appearing on a news program. This is the PBS NewsHour. I do want to share this video of the foreign minister of Poland pushing back against Donald Trump's claim this might have been a mistake.
I think it's high time that President Trump should see that Putin is mocking him. Instead of a ceasefire that was supposed to happen before the Alaska summit and serious peace talks, Putin is sending more and more drones, first at Ukraine and now at NATO. So I hope that at the end of this process, we have a series of coordinated moves to make President Putin realize that this exotic project of rebuilding the Russian Empire will not stand.
Putin is waging a war for empire. Here's a map of what the Russian Empire looked like prior to World War I, and this is the map that Putin stares at every day. He honestly believes that everything that used to belong to the old Russian czars should belong to him today. This includes the modern nations of Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Belarus, Poland, Ukraine, Moldova, parts of Romania, the Caucasus, Central Asia. This is a decades-long project to get their empire back, and Putin has already set it in motion. He's already committed the Russian people towards this path. Children in every school in Russia today are preparing for the war of empire they will be fighting in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Putin is going to kill millions unless we stop him today. But that doesn't concern Trump. Here's Ilya Ponomarenko. Anyone got any more questions about whether Donald Trump would do anything if the worst happens and Russia turns against NATO allies in Europe? Ukraine is Europe's greatest ally now, and we need each other as dearly as never before. The strongest military in Europe today is Ukraine. And the Russians aren't going to stop. And Donald Trump in the United States doesn't have a problem with what Russia is doing because Trump wants to do the exact same thing. Greenland, Canada, Panama, Cuba, Venezuela. Donald Trump has plans for empire here in North America. He only wants to be a regional hegemon. He doesn't care what the Russians do in Europe. He doesn't care what the Chinese do in Asia. He wants to do what they're doing. And concerning my friends in Poland, this is an alarming poll. It's a poll of polls. This is from Res Futura, and they asked Polish people, who is to blame for the Russian drone attack on Poland? And 38% of Poles responded Ukraine. It's Ukraine's fault that Russia flew these drones into Polish territory. 34% say Russia, 15% say the Polish government, 8% say the media, and 5% say NATO. You might be asking, how is this possible? Why would 38% of Polish people be blaming Ukraine for Russia attacking them? And I don't understand what is currently going on in Poland, given Poland's history. Why is there this rise of pro-Russian sentiment, Russian sympathy, getting to dangerously high levels? Here's Kate from Kharkiv, here's her theory. It's a good time to remember how the Russian propaganda machine operates, especially in light of the Russian drone attack on Poland, and confusing conspiracies that surround it already. Rather than presenting a believable alternative version of events, it floods TV and social media timelines with numerous baseless and easily debunked narratives. The ultimate goal isn't to persuade people to believe their version, but instead it aims to bury the actual facts under a deluge of falsehoods. By sowing confusion, they prevent meaningful discussion and encourage people to dismiss the issue as too complex to unravel. The Russian propaganda machine isn't aimed to convince, but to confuse. So the old Soviet-style propaganda presented this utopian image that everyone knew was a lie. But modern Russian propaganda, they just promote conspiracies. They just feed and fuel terrible ideas, terrible theories. They amplify them, and they just want people to feel overwhelmed and confused. If you go on social media and you feel confused by what everyone is saying, then Russia achieved their objective. This is how you get to the point where 38% of Polish people believe it's Ukraine's fault that Russia attacked them with drones. I'm going to quick mention this story, but my Vice President, JD Vance, admitted that Trump is not seeking to economically isolate Russia beyond this conflict. JD Vance went on Matt Gaetz' show on OAN. I'll link the clip down below, but he's an idiot, and he basically admitted the reason why Trump has not sanctioned Russia is because Trump wants to do business with the Russians. Trump wants to make money with Russia somehow. Now, economically, this doesn't make any sense. Historically, there's been very little trade between the United States and Russia because our main exports are food and energy, and Russia's main exports are food and energy. So we're competitors. We don't have complementary economies. But Trump ideologically loves the Russians and wants to find a way to do business deals with the Russians. So Trump doesn't want to sanction Russia at all because he doesn't want to upset and offend them, because he wants to find a way to make money with them as soon as possible. This is Trump and JD Vance's priorities. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about human rights. They're just trying to make money for themselves. And here's Solyov on Kremlin State TV, the latest clip from Russia Media Monitor. Solyov invites America to fight on Russia's side. The entire clip is 8 minutes. I'll link it down below, but I'll read for you a little bit of what Solyov is saying these days. This is a religious war. It's taking place on the territory of Ukraine. But this war is not only against NATO. We can see it very well right now. Basically, America has to go over to the side of evil, which is where it is right now, to realize that it is not on the right side of history. It went over to that side under Biden. Now, America has to come over to the side of good, and together with us, like in World War II and the Great Patriotic War, destroy universal evil that has taken root within America itself, which is freely blooming in Europe. And one of these scary heads of Medusa is in Ukraine. Medusa did not have multiple heads, that's a hydra. Medusa had snakes, but okay. That's why we fight against global evil in Ukraine. That's why we're addressing all healthy, traditional, conservative forces in the world. If you want to defeat global evil, you have to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. This is Solyov begging Donald Trump to have the United States military help Russia defeat Ukraine. This is how Putin's special military operation is going after 3.5 years. This is a concerning headline, though. Trump envoy tells Belarus, we want to reopen our embassy in Minsk soon and normalize relations. Belarus freed 52 political prisoners after Trump asked Lukashenko, and in exchange, the United States is going to ease some sanctions on Belarus. I don't support this. I think this is a terrible idea. Belarus at the moment is basically occupied by the Russian military. Lukashenko allowed Russian forces to invade Ukraine from the north. Belarus is an active participant in this war. But Donald Trump loves Belarus. He loves Lukashenko. And he sent this special envoy, John Cole. I've never seen this guy before. But he basically went to meet with Lukashenko. And in exchange for Lukashenko releasing these 50 prisoners, they announced they're going to lift some sanctions on Belarus, specifically for Belarus's airline. This is Belavia. Belavia is not a very big company, but this is Belarus's official state airline. And it's obvious what's going on here. I'll link this clip down below from a Ukrainian blogger. But Trump wants to lift sanctions on Russia. He wants to help Russia's airlines. And he wants to resume direct flights from Moscow to New York and Moscow to Washington, D.C. But because everyone in the world hates Russia, Trump isn't ready to do that. So he came up with a compromise. We'll lift sanctions on Belarus. This will allow Belarus to buy all the airline parts that they want for Russia. Belarus is just going to become a backdoor for Russia to evade more sanctions on their airlines. In addition, if you want a direct flight from Moscow to New York City or Moscow to Washington, D.C., all you have to do is now fly Belavia, and there's a short layover in Minsk. The airline will take off in Moscow, land in Minsk, be parked for a couple minutes, and then take off for New York or Washington, D.C. This is what Trump wanted to do to help his friends Lukashenko and Putin. And this is disgusting. Trump's envoy gave Lukashenko a gift from Trump.
And as I was leaving the Oval Office with that, he said, "Come back, don't forget, I have these for him."
Я уже выходил из овального кабинета, он меня остановил и попросил: подожди, стой, не забудь вот это передай президенту.
Да, интересные запонки с изображением Белого дома. Но я постараюсь в долгу не остаться.
Lukashenko is the longest-serving dictator in Europe. He has held on to power for over 30 years by rigging all of his elections and killing, imprisoning, or exiling all of his political rivals. Nobody in Belarus is free. They don't have freedom of the press, they don't have freedom of speech, they cannot protest their government, and Donald Trump wants to send a symbol to dictators around the world, using the image of the White House. The White House is supposed to be a symbol of freedom and democracy around the world, and Trump has perverted it, instead using the People's House as a symbol of tyranny and authoritarianism. Belarus and Russia, these are Orwellian states in which none of the people are free. This is how bad things are going to be in Russia, and I assume Belarus very soon. The Kremlin is preparing to block WhatsApp. 100 million people in Russia use this messaging service. And what Russia wants is for all of their people on their smartphones to use the official state government app so that all of their communications can be monitored by the FSB. Everyone in Russia, and soon Belarus, will only be able to communicate with their family and friends through an official government app in which they are being surveilled 24 hours a day. This is George Orwell's wet dream. I don't even think he could have predicted devices like cell phones having state apps installed on them that will surveil you 24 hours a day. So this is a mandatory platform. Every citizen in Russia has to download this app and install it on their phone to get official government benefits or enroll their kids in school or whatever. This is a direct import from the Chinese playbook. The Kremlin's strategic goal is a single state-controlled super app like WeChat, where citizens communicate, make payments, and receive official summons, including draft letters from the military, all under the watchful eye of the state. This is tyranny. This is not freedom. And it's horrifying, guys, that this is who Donald Trump loves. This is who Trump respects and wants to be allied with. But here's the result for the people. Antidepressant sales jumped 36% in Russia. Putin's electronic conscription system has inadvertently created a pharmaceutical boom, with Russian citizens spending over $100 million on anxiety medications. From January to July of this year, pharmacy chains sold 12.9 million packs of medications worth $118 million, 36% increase from last year. Sales of anxiolytics, I don't know how to say this word, anxiolytics, which reduce anxiety, rose 10% in the first half of the year, exceeding 9.3 million packs. Doctors report an increase in patients experiencing symptoms of depression, panic attacks, insomnia, and drug dependence. Yeah, because these people live in a dictatorship, and they're not free. One piece of bad news, I just want to honor this man's legacy. Ukraine's Su-27 pilot killed in a combat sortie. Air Force says cause of crash is still unknown. Today we mourn a painful loss. Major Alexander Borovik, a distinguished pilot of the 39th Tactical Aviation Brigade, was killed while performing a combat mission in the Zaporizhia direction. He was only 30 years old. His life was devoted to service and sacrifice. Final video I have for you is from a friend of this channel. His name is Constantine. He's a Ukrainian combat veteran, and he lives in the United States now, but he's obviously from Ukraine, still has family in Ukraine. And for the last 3 years, he's been doing fundraising efforts for diggers, excavation machines, to help Ukrainian soldiers dig trenches. I've mentioned his fundraisers before in the past, but he's got a new one. His goal is $120,000 to buy a couple of these diggers. And I just want to share his message, his video. If you guys want to help him out, he would greatly appreciate it.
Hello everyone, my name is Constantine. I wanted to show you the video of the work of our excavators that we transferred to Ukrainian armed forces and show you why it's important. Please watch this video. As you can see, this is the caponier for the PZH 2000 howitzer. It's really huge to host the howitzer, and not only it hosts the howitzer, it also has the living quarters for the crew. To build such a such position without an excavator, it takes weeks and weeks of people, work of people. So without your help, they will not be able to do it. We're currently fundraising for the excavators to help them do it. So please donate and share this message. Thank you so much.
Once again, I've been following Constantine's work for 3 years. I know him, I trust him. I donated $1,000 myself to this campaign. So if you want to kick in $5 or $20, he's currently at 80,000 raised, and he's looking to get another 40. So if you want to chip in, this is your opportunity. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.